Hi there. Welcome to The Art of Aging, which is part of the Abundant Aging podcast series from United Church Homes. On this show, we look at what it means to age in America and in other places around the world with positive and empowering conversations that challenge, encourage, and inspire everyone everywhere to age with abundance. Today, we're excited to have Eric Levitan with us, Vivo. And Eric, you're here as part of what we're calling our Aging Innovators series. And today we are going to be talking all about exercise, specifically exercise past the age of 65, dispelling the myths, which you certainly have a lot of background about. And I want to get into Vivo and what it does. But because we are talking about exercise and because we're talking about exercise when you're older, our lawyers have asked to say that our conversation here is our opinion. And please check with your doctor before starting any exercise regimen, changing your exercise regimen, and all that other good stuff. So now, Eric, now that we can speak freely, just start by telling us about your background. Why are we here talking to you about exercise, and especially exercise past the age of 65?
Sure. And that's wonderful advice, by the way, to always consult with a doctor before you start any exercise program. But thanks so much for having me on, Mike. I'm very excited about the ability to talk to you and the listeners about the power of exercise in general, which I think for a lot of us, it's sort of known, right? We all know that exercise is good for you, but really delving into the science behind exercise and specifically as we age, why it becomes so important. And then even more focus is where we are bringing to the table from a Vivo perspective with a real focus on building strength. And so I'm excited to talk to the listeners. And really my background is in entrepreneurship. I have a fairly robust background in technology and software and was fortunate enough to be a part of a software company where I was able to exit it and sell it to a large organization, which gave me the flexibility to really get introspective and figure out what I want to do with my life. And at that point where I was really trying to think about what I wanted to do next, I knew that I wanted to have a significant impact on someone else's life. I didn't just want to create software that would help run a business. I really wanted to do something and felt really compelled to do something that would improve the quality of someone's life. And at the time became an observer to what was happening to my own parents. And I think for so many of us who get into this space, it's watching someone that we love go through the aging process. And that's exactly what happened in my situation is my parents were in their mid to late 70s. They started going through a fairly precipitous decline in their quality of life, which I soon found out to be quite typical of that age. And my mom started having a series of falls. And I kind of threw myself into the literature, into the research, and I really started this journey on what does it mean to age and why do falls happen?
Right. And then you came up with Vivo, and we're kind of burying the lead here because, Vivo, it's an exercise program. It's an exercise program, as I understand it, for anybody at any age. I'm sure you got a program that'll kick my butt, but you're combining not just physical exercise, you're combining physical and cognitive or brain games together at the same time, right? That's kind of the magic mix, right?
Yeah, and that's, such an important element is the more we looked into and really understood around exercise and aging and where to really place emphasis, the more we started realizing that, look, it's not just your physical strength and your bone density and your balance and your proprioception and some of these things that we all talk about a lot, but it's around cognition too. And it's about connectedness and social connectedness and feeling a part of a broader community. And so can you bring in all these different elements into one program that really serve as, ultimately at the end of the day, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, the foundational element, if you want to exercise and see improvements in your life, whether it's around preventing a disease, managing a disease, or just being able to do activities of daily living and maintaining your independence, it's all about consistency. And so understanding that anything you do, it has to be done consistently. How do we drive consistency? And it's all about behavioral change. And so really diving into the science behind behavioral change and connecting with other human beings and making it fun and bringing in some of these other elements, those all went into the genesis of how we created this program.
And I gotta say, I mean, I can definitely sort of see the direction. I mean, I'm an Orange Theory freak. I'm a solid core freak. But what those have in common is group exercise with other people, that motivating factor. Orange Theory brings in some gamification with the way that your heart rate goes up and down and things like that. It really is, at least for somebody like me, pretty sticky, that kind of a program. So I'm getting three components here. You've got the physical exercise part, you've got the brain game cognitive exercise part, then you've got the social engagement part of it too, right? And how are those kind of tuned to people's levels if they're engaging in an exercise program that Vivo brings out?
So maybe it would be helpful if I can give just a kind of a basic understanding of what we do, then answer that question in the context of how we deliver this program. So
Sure.
Vivo is an online but live and interactive small group fitness program really designed for older adults and with a real focus on building strength. And the important things to unpack from that kind of wordy statement is one, we do have this emphasis on building strength, which is really in response to the fact that we all lose muscle mass as we age. Every single person on the planet. It begins in our 30s, which is terribly depressing, and it's a progressive condition. It actually accelerates as we get older, and that condition is generally referred to as sarcopenia. And I can remember the first time I heard the word sarcopenia, I thought,
Can you spell the word sarcopenia, please?
sure, it's Sarcopenia. And the first time I heard it, I thought it was an island off of the coast of Italy. It is not.
Yeah,
Uh,
sarcopenia is great this time of year. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, it's a
yeah.
wonderful place to visit. It's actually a terrible place to visit because
Oh,
it correlates to a loss of mobility and function as it relates to this progressive loss of muscle mass. It's literally something that happens to everybody, regardless of your gender, of where you live on this planet. And so knowing that and then kind of continuing down that path, it's responsible for so much of what we do on a daily basis as we age. Standing up out of a chair, getting up off of the floor, reaching up and grabbing something. This is all using our strength. And as we lose that ability, we lose our ability to do activities of daily living. But it's so much more than that. It's what contributes to falls. It's what contributes to a number of diseases of aging, from type 2 diabetes to osteoporosis to cardiovascular disease to hypertension, et cetera. It has got this really, really significant negative impact on our lives, the fact that we are losing muscle mass as we age. But the amazing thing, Mike, that I would love for everybody to walk away from this podcast knowing is there's something we can do about it. Aging does not need to equate to physical decline, but it requires a little bit of work. And that work is actually referred to as strength training or occasionally resistance training. And it's really the challenging of our muscles on a consistent basis to maintain our strength so that we can ward off these diseases, we can prevent falls, and we can maintain our independence and quality of life. So that's our core thesis, Mike, is we're really about strength training, but we do it in such a way that we want to make it accessible to people. We know it's intimidating to go into a gym and be surrounded by 20-year-olds in tank tops, pumping iron. And so that's not and there's a lot of barriers to even putting yourself in that position. You got to get in your car and deal with traffic. And depending on where you live, the weather, being able to join a program online removes so many of those barriers. And then doing it as a live and interactive small group gets to the heart of what your question was all about, which is we have the ability to connect people through this very fun, socially engaging experience, which is why we lean into it's not a video. This is not a one-way live stream like a Peloton. This is a small group, live and interactive experience where a trainer has eyes on you. They're keeping you safe. They're correcting your form. They're making sure that they're modifying an exercise if you're experiencing pain or discomfort. And at the same time, it's a big enough group that we're really focusing on the social engagement aspect of this. So this is a core kind of component of what we're all about.
yeah. I mean, so many things are swimming through my head right now, Eric, as you say that. So, I mean, the structure of the program, got it. But just going back to this idea of muscle, right? I mean, I was always taught that, an exercise, a lot of people do a lot of cardio, but they may not pay attention to the muscle. A lot of people pay a lot of attention to the muscle and not the cardio. But in terms of building the muscle, I mean, I was always taught that your muscle are yeah, the more muscle you have, the more calories you're burning, right? But your muscles are also kind of like aside from just getting you around, they also might be kind of like filters or strainers for all sorts of bad stuff in your life or disease or this or that. I mean, the more muscle you have, I guess, the better.
For sure, for sure. And there is such a direct correlation between what you just said and specific diseases. Muscle mass helps regulate blood sugar. It's one of the one of the reasons that type 2 diabetes is a disease of aging is because we're losing that ability as we get older. And osteoporosis, the loss of bone density, is a direct reflection of stopping putting a load on our bones because we are losing muscle mass. As we lose muscle mass, it's often replaced by fat, which leads to cardiovascular disease. And so all of these things are related to our ability to maintain our muscle mass and our strength and our function. And
But the
so
thing,
it's such an important thing for people to recognize.
yeah, but here's the thing, though. I mean, when you're talking about people as they age, there's this sense that, I'm done building muscle. It's kind of like I'll build muscle, build muscle, build muscle, build muscle, and then boom, well now I can't work out anymore. It's not possible for me to build muscle or build flexibility or to do. I mean, can you build muscle and can you improve flexibility at any age?
You really can. And some of the real landmark studies that really established the science around this, which were really from the 80s, looked at individuals who were in their 90s in nursing homes and had lost much of their mobility and their function and put them through 12 weeks of 45-minute, 3 times a week strength classes. And the difference that they saw in their lives was nothing short of dramatic. And it was well established then and continued to be established and reinforced over and over again through countless studies that show it is never too late to regain strength and function. And so that's a really important thing because I think for a lot of us, especially as we age, we tend to fall into that trap, which is I just can't do this anymore. I'm so deconditioned that there's no point in me starting. Or if I did, I'll get hurt or I'll just embarrass myself or worse. And I think it's a really important thing for as we, have this conversation and more people talking about this, especially within the healthcare system, right? Because so often we rely on our physicians, on our doctors, on our primary care physicians, our geriatricians, our endocrinologists, or orthopedists to pass on that wisdom. And I think in a lot of cases, cardiovascular health is really at the top of the discussion. And we talk about the importance of walking, but there's not enough people really sharing that awareness and education around how important it is for us to maintain our strength and the fact that it isn't too late. And so those are just some myths that I think are very common, which are this isn't really for me. And in fact, this is probably the single most important thing that we can all be doing as we get older.
Yeah, and it's not, when I guess when we say we're gaining strength, we're gaining flexibility. I mean, this is we're gaining strength and flexibility for you, for where you are in life, for where you are in your current situation. It's not about being as strong as you were in your 20s, or it's not about being Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's not. This is improving strength and flexibility for you, right?
Yeah, that's such an important point, Mike, because I think we all have that connotation of when we hear the word strength training, we think, depending on your age, of Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? That is our vision. That is our model of what strength training is. And I think that's doing a disservice to us all that we aspire or think that that's what strength training looks like. Strength training is really just challenging our muscles to be able to do the things that we enjoy doing. And so one of the most basic strength training moves that you can do is what's generally referred to as a squat. A squat can take different variations. It can be an unsupported squat. It can be a squat while you're holding weight to create more resistance, but it can also be standing up from a chair. And look, that is one thing that every single person on the planet does dozens of times a day. And being able to do that well with a high degree of confidence and a low degree of pain and discomfort is really, really important because when you lose your ability to stand up from a chair, that's where you really lose your independence. And so backing it up from there, really thinking about the core things that maintain our independence, that maintain our ability to do activities of daily living. This is what we're talking about. And every exercise that we've built into the Vivo program has a real purpose of what you do on a daily basis,
I love
whether it is getting out of a car, walking up a flight of stairs, carrying a bag of groceries, standing up off of a chair, getting off of the floor, reaching up and grabbing something from a cabinet above. That's what this is about. This isn't about, what your maximum bench press is or how you're going to look in a tank top. It's really about maintaining your function so that you can maintain your independence and your quality of life.
Yeah, you know something, we just filmed a series of shorts just the other week at the design house in Columbus, Ohio, where it's a whole showcase for some young Mosaic Design Studios. Plug for them, does it. But in the middle of this mansion, this 19th century mansion that was owned by the rubber boot king of the United States, believe it or not, because Ohio seems to be the Silicon Valley of the states from in 1900. There's this beautiful grand staircase that they have, and I'm like, well, gosh, shouldn't this be a ranch house? It's like, no, no, no. Stairs are important. Stairs are important for people, no matter what age they are, because it's just that habit of engaging those muscles, right?
That's right. That's right. And stairs are a wonderful strength training example of what we don't necessarily think of as strength training, but there's so much of your lower body strength that is required to navigate stairs in addition to balance. And again, I think far too often we're so quick to put that behind us and move into the sedentary, part of our life. And the more that, I mean, that expression, use it or lose it, is such, it's so trite. We all know it, but it is absolutely true. And so the more that you can engage in movement, the more that you can continue to challenge yourself, whether it's stairs, whether it's, real dedicated strength training and physical movement, and being intentional about it. That's what this is all about.
Well, yeah, and then I'm just going to remind people again, do check in with your doctor on this. Do check in with some, because we think about all the components of a good lifestyle. Cardio, strength, flexibility, diet. Those elements. But and we're going to actually pick this up in another episode. But talking about how the importance of form, the importance of doing exercise that's right for you, the starting small and building up gradually, things like that. I mean, I guess one of the big things that you might hear about is like, oh no, I can't do that. I'm going to get hurt. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, so that's one of the things that we really leaned into significantly when we were creating this program is we built out this level system. Because the reality of the situation is every single older adult, the state of their current wellness, function, mobility, it's all very complex. What we see often is multiple comorbidities. Someone may have type 2 diabetes and osteoporosis, or osteoarthritis and an artificial knee, or maybe they've got mild cognitive impairment and they've got lower back pain and dysfunction. There's so many variations of this that having another human being that's a part of this equation is really important. And even more so than the complexity of a given individual, that complexity gets even compounded on a daily basis, because sometimes you wake up and you don't feel the same, right? Maybe you slept wrong and your neck hurts, or
Yeah, oh, that's a
2 days ago, but now you do. And one of the challenges of any
I
fitness,
had that problem the other day. Yeah, why is my lower back hurting so much? Goodness, it doesn't hurt today. It did yesterday.
and that happens to everybody. That's not an exception, right? That's almost the rule. Is you wake up occasionally, you just feel a little bit different. And so having another human being that's a part of this equation, that's a part of this solution, that can help you through that, because it's not intuitive and it's not necessarily always so obvious what you should do about that. So this is where we've actually built out this program to be fairly robust. And we've got essentially level 1 through level 4 of every single exercise that we do. And we are very, very intentional about a person does not equate to a level, because this is what we see a lot is someone may have really strong lower body, but have some issues with their shoulders that causes them not to be able to do as much from an upper body perspective, and vice versa. Someone else may have a really strong upper body, but have significant knee issues or neuropathy in their feet that causes them to not be able to do such aggressive, exercise on their lower body. And so we're constantly working with our members and trying to make sure that they have found the level that's appropriate for them on that day for that exercise. And that's really, really important, because again,
On that day for that exercise. That's okay. Great. Got it. Yeah.
and that's a critical element, because if you're not really individualizing this enough, personalizing this enough for you, that's where people start to get into trouble. And that's where exercise kind of gets a little bit scary for people, or develops a bad reputation, is people try to do something that's not appropriate for them. Something I love to do, I speak a lot on the importance of strength training as you age. And something I love to do in a room of older adults is say, raise your hand if you can do a push-up. And you'll see a smattering of hands go up, maybe a couple. And I'll respond and say, actually, everybody in this room can do a push-up, just not the kind of push-up that you may be thinking about. Because when we say the term push-up, we all have a vision of us getting to the floor and lowering our chest to the floor and pushing ourselves back. on our hands and toes. And that's just one form of a push-up. And in the Vivo vernacular, that's actually a level 4 push-up. But you can back that all the way up. Maybe you can't do that, but maybe you can get to the 4 and do a knee push-up. But maybe you can't even get to the 4. Maybe you can do a push-up off the back of a chair or a countertop where your body's at an angle, but you don't have to get to the floor. And then a level 1 push-up is you can just stand against a wall and extend your arms and push yourself away from the wall. And the further you step your feet away from the wall, the more challenge and the more resistance that creates. And almost everybody can stand next to a wall and push and extend their arms and push themselves away. And that's also a push-up. So helping people find what's appropriate for them, where they have an ability and a comfort level. And then the second part of this is we want to progress people down this path because that's where you
That
see.
must give people a lot of confidence, right? Once they do that one thing, and suddenly it opens a door, and it allows them to step forward and try more things.
That's exactly right, Mike, is give people the confidence and the form, right? So they learn how their body moves in space. They learn what they're capable of doing that they can do well. And then we want to start to challenge them because like anything in life, without challenge is what creates results, whether it's physically, whether it's emotionally, whether it's mentally, right? We have to challenge ourselves on a regular basis to see that progress, to see those outcomes. And so what we want to do is create a foundation of comfort and confidence, and then start to push that needle so that we're getting people to begin to challenge where they're at, because that's where we start to see really impactful difference. And it's amazing to see.
Well, the last question I have, for this podcast, and we're going to do a couple more listeners, so please tune in for more. You're a tech-focused platform. There's a trope out there. Oh, older people can't use technology, blah, 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 blah. I mean, my response to that is that, at least the people we see, moving into, I don't know, independent living, that sort of, they may have retired 15 years ago, but 15 years ago in their office, they had a computer and probably the early smartphone and the internet and things like, I mean, have you seen any issues with people kind of like, using their tablets or laptops or whatever to kind of, do the Vivo program?
So it's funny, when we first got started, which was really at the beginning of the pandemic, we launched this program in April of 2020. And we had a team of people ready to on a moment's notice, right? Someone's joining a class. If they struggled to we utilize Zoom from a video conference technology platform perspective. We had a team of people ready to respond and help our members get into these Zoom fitness classes. And they sat on their hands. And I won't pretend to say that we don't ever see issues, because of course we do, but they're few and far between. And I think, one of the blessings in disguise from the pandemic that we all experienced is it really accelerated technology adoption really across all kinds of demographics. And Zoom in particular, and video conference technology became sort of ubiquitous. It became this technology that became a necessity for our life to connect with our families and our friends while we were going through this terrible time. And so what we have seen from a Vivo perspective is pretty much everybody has a real ability and capacity to get on a Zoom call and participate in a Vivo class. We do recognize that not everybody has had that experience and not everybody has that comfort level. And so we've built out, as a part of that, is we actually offer this thing to every new customer that joins. We offer something called a Vivo Smart Start. And this is a one-on-one dedicated session where we help people get onto Zoom. We look at their space to make sure it's safe. There's no tripping hazards, things like that. We walk them through some of the basics of the exercises that we'll do, so they have an opportunity to get comfortable with them before their first class, and really try to create this sense of ease and confidence. Because what we do know is that there is a barrier, there is a hurdle between someone who is not exercising currently and taking that first step into exercising. And we want to ease lower that hurdle as much as possible, because there is no disputing the science around exercise and the benefits it has for everybody, but specifically as we age. And it's really something that we all need to build into our lifestyle, and it will have dramatic impact.
Eric, that's just terrific. And, we, at the end of each podcast, we like to ask our guests 3 questions. Now, we're doing 3 podcasts today. Listeners, you may be listening to these out of order, but there will be 3, hopefully, barring some sort of terrible catastrophe. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you 1 question for each podcast, but maybe I want to pair this with something else. First of all, can you tell, Just give me one story of someone that you've seen make progress through your program.
So I have a lot of stories.
I know, but I want one. We can do one for each episode.
One is hard, but I will give you one that is actually my favorite story because it's a personal relationship that I have. My father-in-law, who is 81 or 82 and lives in Wisconsin, joined slightly reluctantly as we were first getting started. And what we do with our exercises, we built out this program. We leverage a combination of body weight and we use resistance bands. So we send everybody, they're like tubes with handles, like the fairly substantial. And those are great because you can really create a lot of resistance, but it's gentle in the joints and it's very flexible in terms of what you can use. So we started this program with my father-in-law, and about 6 weeks in, he reached out to me separately and said, "Can you send me new resistance bands? Mine don't work anymore." And I was really confused, right? We've been sending these out for a long time, and look,
Right.
they last a long time, but it's like anything. Maybe they have a tear, a micro tear, or that it just breaks. And so I was like, did yours break? And he goes, no, they're not providing as much resistance as they used to. And it was this, and literally my response to to him was, do you think it's possible that you're getting stronger? And to watch his response and his epiphany of recognizing what was happening. It wasn't that the resistance bands had lost their resistance, right? In 6 weeks, that's not happening. It was that he was seeing such a significant gain in strength that these resistance bands felt less resistance to him. And it was a wonderful moment, not of increased function. And we've got lots of those stories, or doing things that they weren't doing before. We've got lots of those stories. But it was just the power of participating in a program like this and how quickly you see results and see real impact. And here was my father-in-law thinking that this equipment he was using was no longer working and he was just getting stronger.
Well, you know what? I think that covers question three that we usually ask, which is, is there someone you've met or been in your life that's set a good example for you in aging? So I'm going to take that answer as an answer for that question. So that's terrific. And thank you to our listeners for tuning in for this episode of the Abundant Aging Podcast, Art of Aging Innovator Series, this time with Eric from Vivo. And we want to hear from you. What has changed about you as you've aged that you love? What has surprised you the most? How do you define abundant aging? What do you think of the subject of today's show? And send us some feedback. Just visit us at abundantagingpodcast.com to share your ideas. Look us up on YouTube under United Church Homes. And Eric, where can they find you?
So you can always go to teamvivo.com. That's TEAMVIVO, like you're a part of a team. When you join Vivo, we really believe that you are joining this team and we're all in it together. And you can always sign up for a free class. We know that exercise can be a little bit scary, especially if you haven't done it in a while. You can always sit in a free class and get an introduction. It's more talking than moving, you'll get a little bit more insight into what we do, how we do it, and actually leave having probably a pretty good time, feeling a little bit better, and hopefully the confidence that this is something that you can do. And we see it all the time. It's pretty amazing.
That's wonderful. Okay, so that's teamvivo.com, abundantagingpodcast.com. We've got unitedchurchhomes.org. We got our Ruth Frost Parker Center at the unitedchurchhomes.org/Parker-Center. Check all of those out. But Eric, thank you so much for your time today. Listeners, thank you so much for listening. Keep an ear out for more of this great content. And again, send us your show ideas and your feedback. Until next time.